Welcome back, everybody, to another video of CK Picks. And today, we will be giving a little recap of Week 1 college football that this happened this past weekend. I know I'm a little late on this video because, I've been a little busy this week. But that's the video for today. We're going to be talking about Week 1, like I said before, of college football this past weekend. So let's just get right into it. So the first game I'll be talking about is obviously the big game at noon that took place between Texas and Ohio State, the number 1 team in the country versus number 3 team in the country. I know a lot of people were anticipating this matchup, throughout the summer and through all the media talks. And I was also looking forward to this game as well. So let's just get right into it. So obviously you have the Arch Manning versus Julian saying, their big first game, starting as the new quarterbacks for both of these teams. Because, last year was Quinn Ewers and Will Howard, and, those guys didn't really see much playing time throughout the season unless some injury occurred with Quinn Ewers. Arch Manning stepped in for a couple of games, played pretty well, even though the teams that they played were kind of like FCS level, not big Division I schools, but playing time is playing time nowadays. So with the quarterback play in this game, obviously Arch had a lot of hype and a lot of eyes on him because of the last name, and he's the obviously new starting quarterback. And also June Sane, not as talked about much in the media, but definitely a lot of eyes on him from the Ohio State fans' perspective, to see how he would go into his first game as a true first-time starter, and see how comfortable he was with this new team. Obviously different tackles for Ohio State, and receiver plays, just you're replacing one with Emeka who left the draft, and you bring in Brandon Ennis as well. So with the quarterback play, I think Arch had a lot on his plate with this game, especially with Matt Patricia off defense that he was playing against, just different coverages, different looks, different schemes and stuff. But I think Arch overall, I think he had an okay game. I wouldn't say it was mediocre. I mean, he did go 17 of 30, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But I mean, I feel for the kid because he had a lot of these expectations coming into the game, generational talent quarterback, which, he didn't need all of that coming into this game because he already felt the pressure just based off his last name. So I kind of felt for him, but at the same time he did struggle seeing the field a little bit down the field. It's not that he had, at first you could tell he's a little he did feel the pressure at first because some of those throws, underthrown, overthrown. And I think it got to him a little bit in the first half because I think he only threw for 36 yards in the first half against Ohio State. And then he kind of tuned up a little bit near the fourth quarter. But, I mean, at that point, it was kind of too late, because especially with their offense, Texas on third down was, 5 of 14. And then on fourth down, they were 1 for 5. 2 of those stops ended up being the goal line stop for Ohio State in the red zone. So that was big for the Ohio State defense perspective. I think a lot of Ohio State fans had questions on the defense side as well, especially the D linemen, because all of our guys left, or the Ohio State defense line all left for the NFL. Just so I think a lot of people were looking to see how their defense line would look in the first game. I'd say they look good against this Texas offense line, who lost a lot as well to the draft. They're replacing 4 of the 5 starters on the Texas offensive line. So, I mean, they did get some pressure, only 1 sack, which came from Alvaro Reese at the linebacker position, who also will stand up front as a defense lineman that will pass rush the quarterback as well. I think Steve Sarkisian, I think he did a good job calling the plays. I think Arch just wasn't seeing it. He was holding the ball too long. I think I'd like to see Arch in that scenario. If there's nothing open, I would like to see him take off more, get some rushers, because he is athletic. I mean, you saw him do it a couple times, but I think there's times where he took too long and didn't, make decisions quick enough to where he, like I said, just made those bad throws. And I think he'll learn from this, obviously, because, like I said, first game, at Ohio State, big time game. All eyes are on them. So I think just from here forward, I think he's gonna get better and better because he's gonna have some games where he's gonna be able to tune up for these next couple weeks before they go on to play Florida in the next couple weeks, and then with Julian Sayin, I think he did what he was asked to do, just stay in control, just feel confident, and also too Ryan Day didn't really ask him to do much. I mean, Julian Sayin, he was 13 of 20, 126, one touchdown. I think he obviously would have had more yards passing if there wasn't those 3 or 4 drops that his receivers and tight ends had. He did throw some good passes to the sidelines, 2 of them. One to Max Clare on that 4th down where he just dropped right in his hands, and Brandon Anderson. I know it's probably a little bit tougher catch for him to make, but it was still, over the shoulder, perfect pass, but those are a little bit harder to make, but I think he still should make that catch. And I think Ohio State, they struggled a little bit running the ball. I was kind of I think with them, they only had 77 yards rushing, 2.3 yards per carry, compared to Texas where they had 166 yards rushing, 4.5 yards per carry. So with Ohio State, I think, in the next couple of weeks they're going to try to maybe get a little more creative on the rushing game for them because I think they have talent to get to the 100-yard mark or more for the next couple of weeks. They should. If they don't, then there might be some serious problems with how their running plays for the run game. But I think Ryan Day will get that cleaned up with Brian Hartline and stuff for the offensive side. But I think overall in that game, I think it was I knew coming into that game it was going to be a defensive battle between the two because you have 2 of them are the top 5 defenses in the country coming in this year with talent on both sides, big names on both sides. So I knew that was going to be a low-scoring game. I didn't think it was going to be much high-powered offense. I thought it was going to be maybe a little bit more scoring going into that game, maybe a 23-20 type of game, but it ended up only being 14-7, which Texas only scored the 1 touchdown late into the game, about around the 4-minute mark, 5-minute mark. So, but I think overall in that game was a really good game. We'll probably see those 2 teams in the future, probably in a playoff spot, fighting to go win the championship this upcoming year. So that's just my take on that game. Next, we have the Alabama-Florida State. And this one was definitely a little shocking when it comes to Alabama, for sure, against Florida State. Florida State coming in this year, they were 2-10 last year. A little bit of a down year, I would say, for Florida State last year. I don't get expected to go 2-10, especially with some of the money they spent to get some transfers. And then coming into this year, they come in with basically 5 new transfer offensive linemen who are starting, brand new quarterback, different receivers that are transfers. Defense is basically, majority of them are transfer guys, some of them are recruits. But I think the quarterbacks, I think they play well. I think Ty Simpson, even though his stats, they say 23 of 43, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns, didn't throw any picks, didn't turn the ball over. I think for him, like I said, I think he played well. His offensive line, they gave up so many pressures and sacks. And, some of these guys, they weren't getting open like Ryan Williams. He dropped a couple passes. Bernard was their best receiver on Alabama. He was making all the plays for them down the field. So I think for him, I think Ty Simpson, I think he's, confident. I think Kalen DeBoer is confident in him moving forward to win them games. I just think Alabama didn't look like themselves that they had in the past. They've had, be able to run the ball, ground and pound the football against other, great defenses or even elite defenses. So, because Alabama, they only rushed for 87 yards, 3 yards per carry. So I was expecting a lot more, especially out of that Alabama rushing game, especially with that offensive line. They had talent up front, but it seemed like they were just getting dominated by the Florida State defensive line, just out physical. And they were just all 11 to the ball, making plays. Guys were making plays. So Florida State's defense, they were solid, just moving around the ball. Like I said before, all 11 heads to the ball, they just out physical Alabama in all perspectives, offense, defense, special teams. They just outplayed them, and I think it looks like Bama, they weren't giving full 100% effort on either side of the ball. It looks like they were lazy. They were just lackluster. They were confused at times. And I think Florida State came in the game plan look, we're gonna run the ball down your throat because I don't think you guys are gonna stop us in the running game. And that shows that Florida State. Well, we'll go with the quarterback for Florida State. Tommy boy. I mean, he only threw the ball 14 times, 9 of 14, 152 yards passing it, no passing touchdowns. But Florida State did rush Bama by a ton. They had 230 yards rushing, 4.7 yards per carry, which is you don't see that against Bama often at all, especially before Nick Saban retired. That was like a unicorn type of game. If you rush even for over 100 yards against Alabama or 150, it's just something. I think something obviously is going on in Alabama when it comes to the culture. Something's different. Something is just that. I think when you played for Bama a couple years ago, it definitely definitely meant something. Especially have that A on that jersey. You had more. I feel like they had more pride. Nick Saban was definitely on their butts about assignments, being aggressive, playing physical, mentally being there as well. I think he's such a great coach. Obviously, he's one of the best of all time. But then Kalen DeBoer coming in from Washington, I think he's had a different culture from Washington, throwing that one up to Alabama now. It's just having such a high expectations coming in after Nick Saban has retired from Alabama. But it's penalties. It's the effort's not there, and they're just they're doing whatever they want. They're always just doing their own thing, and it's just, you could tell it's just kind of rubbing off the wrong way with Alabama fans. They're not liking what they're seeing. I know it's week 1, a lot of people are going to overreact, but hopefully Kalen DeBoer, not hopefully, but I think down the road Kalen DeBoer will get this corrected, and I think you're going to have to see changes out of them. If not, the culture is just going to go sideways and just keep going down. So we'll see what they do, but I think overall in this game, Florida State just dominated both sides, like I said, and I'm excited for Florida State because they had their fans last year were obviously desperate for wins, and they got 2 wins last year, 10 losses. So they got a very favorable schedule. I think they only got to play. They got to play Florida end of the year this year. Obviously, it's a rival game. They got to play Miami, and I believe it's, Miami, Florida, and there's one other team. I think there's Clemson. I think they got to play as well. But we'll see. If they can, only lose one of those games, they'll definitely be in the ACC championship game. Just depends how they go. So, and it was, Florida State statement week 1 win over Alabama. We'll see how their season continues and see how Alabama's season continues. So overall, though, it was definitely an exciting game. Florida State gave them plus 13.5 points in that game as well. Was definitely different. I didn't think Florida State would be a 13.5 point, underdog. But I think going into that game too, there were also just a lot of question marks for Florida State coming into that game, so I didn't know if anybody knew what they expected going into that game, but I think they answered a lot of those questions that people had for Florida State. So moving on from the Florida State-Alabama game, we have the night game, 7:30, LSU versus Clemson. Definitely, it kind of reminded me of the Texas-Ohio State game. I would say with the quarterback play with Garrett quarterback for LSU, Garrett Nussmeier, he played pretty well. I think he played good. I'm not going to say he played elite or great because there's definitely some throws that he missed, and it's not like he was, throwing deep balls. I think he was 0 for 3, 0 for 4 on deep balls, so that's not very good. I think 10 to 20 yards, he was pretty efficient. But I think for him, he was 28 of 38, 232 yards, but he only threw one touchdown. So it's not like he came out and, threw for 4 touchdowns and 0 picks and threw for 330 yards. Like, I think he played a good game. He played a good enough game to where he didn't turn the ball over, didn't make bad decisions. He just played good enough to win the game for LSU. And with, the Clemson quarterback, Cade Klubnik, he threw 19 to 38, 230 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception, which was basically the one that was a dagger for that game. With Clemson, I was a little disappointed in the running attack. They only had 31 yards rushing and 1.6 yard attempt. I think I was just a little disappointed in that because I knew they had all their guys are coming back, offensive line. They got the running back, Cade Klubnik. I know he's able to run as well, but I was a little shocked on LSU's Clemson game. I thought they'd get that a little bit going, but I think it was also shocked too with LSU's defense. I'm not shocked. I just didn't think they would play that well against Clemson. And the linebackers played well. Defensive line was getting after. Obviously, like I said, they only rushed for 31 yards in this game. So LSU definitely, defensive-wise game plan, definitely suited for this game going against Clemson. But I think Clemson was a 4-point favorite. And then, they were up 10-3 at half. So I was like, okay, this is going to be, this game might open up a little bit in the second half. But that's not what ended up happening. LSU ran for 108 yards, 3.5 yards per carry for the game, so they definitely got the run game going a little bit. But I think just overall, LSU did dominate in that second half. I mean, Clemson did nothing in the second half. They had no answers, and they just looked lackluster. And I didn't like the play calling for Clemson. I think they should have got the run game going more, getting more involved into the game. And, instead of passing it, Cade Klubnik, he had 19 incompletions. He was 50% completion percentage for the game, so definitely need better him. But then again, it's week 1. Usually the offense is always behind the defense, so that's why a lot of the week 1 games you're going to see a lot more defenses be dominant compared when they're playing, against the offenses of all these teams, because like I said, they're always ahead. So it takes some time for these guys on offense to get glued and get the chemistry right. So I think down the road you're going to see these teams definitely score more points, but still a great game. Clemson on third down was 3 of 13, which obviously didn't help at all in this game. They were on fourth down, they were 2 for 4. So I mean, they're 50%. That's not terrible, but definitely they have to be better on third down because that's how you're going to sustain these drives, which they weren't able to in the second half, which is why they ended up losing this game 17-10. And then LSU, I mean, they weren't much better. I mean, they were 4-11 on third downs and 0-4 on fourth. But the defense definitely got the job done for LSU, which is why they went on to win this game. So yeah, that's that. LSU wins that game, and they got the stretch coming up. They got some tough games, so we'll see how they look down the road. And last but not least, we have the Notre Dame-Miami game, which was the Sunday night game where this was, C.J. Carr's first start as Notre Dame quarterback. And, he was 19 of 30, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The 1 interception in that game was outlandish. I mean, if you guys saw it, he, threw a screen, receiver dropped it, and the other receiver tried to make a play on it, hit his hand, and then the DB went up, tried to make a play, and it kicked off his foot. And then the Miami player, the big D lineman for Miami, caught it and then started running. So that was kind of a freak of a play. So I can't really blame him for that interception. But I think for C.J. Carr, I think it's just like the rest of the other quarterbacks that started for the first game. He definitely had some jitters a little bit. They were trying to get him comfortable with the shorter passes and just, easy run plays. But I was definitely shocked with Notre Dame's offense when it comes to the running game. I mean, they rushed for 94 yards, which isn't terrible, 3.5 yards per carry, but you have one of the best, if not the best running back in the country with Jeremiah Love in the backfield, and he only gets 10 carries. That's what's mind-boggling. I'm surprised with, especially with your first-time starter running or quarterback, you should hand the ball off to the best running back in the country. He has to get more than 10 touches. If not, you have to get him involved in the passing games, the running back screens, or halfback draws. You need to get the running back involved. They did not do enough of the running game to keep him. I was just so lost when I was watching this game. I'm like, why did they not hand the ball off to Jeremiah Love? Like, he has 10 carries the entire game. I'm gonna keep saying that. It's just ridiculous with that. So I definitely expect them down the road to use him a lot more. Like, I'm talking about 15, 20 carries, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, I think you'll see that next in this upcoming game that they got this week. And then also Notre Dame's offense, they went 4 of 9 on third down, which is just under 50%. Didn't have any fourth down plays that they went for. But also, too, a little disappointment in the Notre Dame offensive line. They didn't block well, especially in the run game, because like I said, they didn't get. There was no rhythm at all in the Notre Dame offense. They had some flashes, but then they stalled too many times on some certain drives. But the offensive line, they played okay. I wouldn't say they played great or they were like good. They was just okay. So I mean, I expected more of the offensive line for Notre Dame, because Miami was just getting after CJ Carr. He was getting pressured. He had to move out of the pocket a lot of times during that game. So I expect to get them straightened up with the offensive line in the next couple of weeks, to have some of those little tune-up games, get them going. And then with Miami, Carson Beck's debut, he was 20 of 31, 205 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. I think he played good. Like I said, I think they definitely made it easy for him. And they had like that one deep ball to CJ Daniels, that one-hand catch was just asinine. It was insane making that catch. But a lot of short passes, like those 5 to 10 yards, not a lot of those. He definitely struggled a little bit in those NFL throws when it comes to the 10 to 20 yard range, which is definitely big in other games. I mean, also was big in this game too. But he just he played well enough where he didn't turn the ball over, didn't make any plays where he threw passes that were definitely not catchable for the defense to make a play on it. With him also, he I think he'll have better games down the road. I think he played good enough to win them this game. Like I said, no turnovers or nothing. So, and they rushed the ball pretty well too with Mark Fletcher and those boys. 127 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. I think Miami definitely surprised me a little bit with also too. And they blocked very well. They didn't give up any sacks. I don't think so. Might have to double check that. But Carson Beck definitely had a clean pocket most of the game. It was definitely a little bit. It was raining too, so I can see why some of those passes were overthrown or underthrown in this game by both quarterbacks. But overall, Carson Beck played a pretty good game. Miami's defense definitely showed out. Defensive line definitely got pressure. They got pressure on TJ Carr. That's why TJ Carr looked a little lost out there. But Mario Cristobal finally gets his big win at Miami, which will definitely help Miami down the road when it comes to recruiting down in Miami or Georgia or the other states down in this area. Florida, like I said, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, all those schools. So I definitely put Miami definitely back in the map. They rank number 5 now. So I mean, when the Miami's popping, they're definitely a place to watch out when it comes to recruiting. For sure, they get the money, they got the location. Have big names gone there before. So with that, I think Notre Dame's gonna be fine. They just have to just win out, play better, which I think they will. Obviously, that's when it comes to these games. I feel like all these quarterbacks can definitely play better, 100%. It's just like I said, week one is always a tough start for quarterbacks and offenses in general. Like I said, because they're always behind the defense. So, and also too, when it comes to these offenses or these defenses, they can game plan, and these offenses don't know what they're gonna be game playing because they're always gonna have different players go to the draft and they gotta replace them. So you just don't. And some teams have different coordinators. They go to the NFL. They go get a head coaching job. So you just never know. So all these quarterbacks, I think, down the road will all be like top 15, top 10 quarterbacks with all these names on this list. Potentially, the veteran guys will be on the top 10 list. I think with these quarterbacks. But the younger guys, I think they'll just keep getting better and better. So I'm looking forward to see how these quarterbacks down the road get better and win their games, play better. So, and that's it. That's just a little week recap of week one, and I think next week for sure. This video for week 2 will be out earlier because, like I said, I was just really busy and stuff this weekend and this week with work. But that will be it, and we will see you guys next time.